and we're just gonna press on. Guys, like, my child is really young, and we really enjoy doing those sorts of activities, and I want to have control over this. I don't want someone coming in from the outside dictating that we need to complete this number of readings, or we didn't finish, or we're going to be behind, or anything like that. If you don't know, if you've never watched my channel before, you may or may not know that this is our first official year of formal lessons. My son is 6. He's a young 6. But we did start our official formal lessons this fall, and we are about 5 or 6 weeks in. And I just wanted to take a little time to update people on what's working, what's not working, what I changed, because I always like to hear about these sorts of things when other people talk about it. So the first thing I'm going to mention is the oft-mentioned logbook. And this is what my logbook looks like. It's obviously not really a book. It's a chart that I made. I go into more detail about how I made this on my, I think I have an Instagram highlight saved about it. I wanted to mention this first because it's actually been really wonderful. I have seen some people complain that the CMEC doesn't break the readings down into weekly chunks the way Ambleside or a lot of other programs do. But I don't think that's an oversight on their part. I think that's actually on purpose, because what it does is it actually forces you to do this sort of reverse planning thing, which is what I did. I did not plan out in advance what readings we were going to do on what day. I based what we're reading that day on the time and where we left off last. So I will just read the book in the allotted time slot that we have, and I don't worry about how far we're going to get, or if we're going to finish the book, or we're going to finish the number of pages that the CMEC recommended for that term. We just press on and we finish what we finish, and I don't worry about it at all, because I feel like there is a difference between the more knowledge-based subjects and the more skills-based subjects. And in the knowledge subjects like geography and literature and American history, all of these things, what they are getting, they are going to get on a yearly basis. And I think that as long as we're doing these subjects as much as we can, I think that we're doing a good job. I don't worry about completing a set number of readings or anything like that. The other thing I really like about this is we can take a day to go to a nature center. We can take a day to do some fun fall crafts that we've been wanting to do without feeling any guilt, or we're going to be behind, or we're going to miss something that we were supposed to do that day. And we're just going to press on. Guys, my child is really young, and we really enjoy doing those sorts of activities, and I want to have control over this. I don't want someone coming in from the outside dictating that we need to complete this number of readings, or we didn't finish, or we're going to be behind, or anything like that. So that's been really lovely. And I would, if you are feeling that way at all, you're behind, or you can't finish this, or you're not doing enough, or something like that, I really highly recommend thinking about doing a sort of reverse planning where you just write down what you did. That's all the logbook really is. You write down what you did that day. It really makes me feel like we're accomplishing a lot. Okay, so I'm going to get into some more subject-specific topics now. So there were a few subjects at the beginning of the year that I was not confident on. I didn't know how to do them, and if they were worth doing, and if I was going to get a lot of pushback or whatnot. And it turns out it's the things that you weren't sure about and the things that you thought that the kid would like, it's always ends up being kind of the opposite. So the first subject I want to bring up is recitation, because we have never, I've never heard my son, he was not the kid that was, memorizing storybooks and stuff. He's more of a child that would make up his own stories and tell me, but he never would sing songs that we knew, or like memorize books and stuff like that. He was just not that kind of kid. So with the recitation, I thought it was going to be like, oh no, I want to make up my own poem. I don't want to do this. But turns out he actually really enjoyed it. And it may help that we actually recently joined a co-op, or we started one with some other ladies from the CMEC. It's been really great. And I told him, I said, you know, everyone's going to get up and read their poem. And so that really put him into action because he is quite a little performer. So all we did was I had him practice reading the poem, and then I would sometimes just read it out loud to him at random times. And he also got to choose. I showed him a few poems, and I let him pick. And this one has to do with math. He really likes math. So he memorized it, and he's like reciting it for everyone, and he's so excited about this because he's never done anything like that before. So it's interesting because I always heard in the past, like, oh, kids, like, they love to memorize, and like they'll memorize this and memorize that. I was like, my son doesn't do that. Like, how is he going to do recitation? And it turns out he just needed this little push, like, okay, we're going to do this, you know, in front of a group at a set time. And turns out it's like one of his favorite things, and he's so excited about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is handwriting. We had a lot of struggles with handwriting at the beginning of the year. We were using the Bukowski Fluent Handwriting, which is an italic handwriting program developed by Nan Barkowski. She has great videos on YouTube. Go check her out. She's a handwriting genius. So we were using that program, and the curves were just really hard for him at the beginning, and it just wasn't clicking, and it was becoming a battle. We even tried the Getty Dubé workbook that I had, and that's very similar, and it just wasn't working. So I started looking at, like, okay, what do occupational therapists recommend for kids who may struggle a little with their fine motor skills and handwriting? So the answer was handwriting without tears, and I didn't want to use this. And the reason I didn't want to use it is because I think the font is kind of ugly. Like, I don't like, you know, I don't think it's very aesthetically pleasing, and it looks like little kid handwriting to me. But this is what is recommended by occupational therapists, because the order that it goes in, it starts out from the simplest capital letters, which are just straight up and down lines, and it gets more complex. And I will say, like, this has been really great. He's really, you know, it's really great when you give kids something that may be a little bit challenging, but they can, you know, they are able to do it, and that has been this. I will say, I don't, like, even the workbook, writing in the workbook is hard for him because the letters are kind of small, like where they actually have to write, but actually just taking this and using it as a guide and writing the letters on the chalkboard standing up has been really, really great. Okay, so next subject is math. And I kind of explained this a little bit in my curriculum choices video, but the approach that we're using for math is almost like to the point of unschool. I mean, I may go into depth in this in another video if people want to know more, but I'm just using a variety of resources. We don't have a set curriculum. I have goals for him that I want him to know his addition facts forwards and backwards by the end of the year. And then I mentioned in the curriculum choice video as well that we got that set of number blocks, and then there's that show that goes along with it. And he watched that show a few times at his grandparents' house. It's called Number Blocks. It's a show from the BBC. And just from watching that, he like memorized all the addition facts. So I haven't really had to do much. We're still going through the arithmetic can be fun book, and that's been really great. It actually is amazing how comprehensive it is. It gives all sorts of suggestions for activities and things to do, and it introduces all of the concepts that we will probably be trying to master for the next 3 years or so, like, you know, measurement, weight, all of that. And right now we're just kind of doing an introduction to that. But he loves it. He seems to really enjoy math and is constantly telling me 3 plus 5 is 8 and just like thinks it's fun. So it's great. Another subject, drill, Swedish drill. This is, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like if you were in the army and you were like calling out commands. Before we started this, I thought he was gonna love this because he's always talking about like army guys and he loves playing with army guys and pretending they're battling and stuff like that. But actually the first few times we did this, I actually got a lot of resistance from him. He didn't want to do it at all. And then after a couple weeks, it was like he would just do it at random times and he decided it was the most fun thing ever. So I actually really recommend people do this if you haven't tried it yet. It really only takes 5 minutes. You can just do it a couple times a week. And it's been really good for him to help his coordination and just using his body in a more purposeful way instead of just flailing everywhere all the time. Another subject that's been very interesting but very, very challenging for us is paper Sloyd, which if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like doing paper crafts, sort of like origami, but includes more like measuring and cutting and tying, and it's a great handicraft because you really do have to be very precise in order to be successful at it. I think Charlotte Mason said it was her favorite handicraft. The kids in her schools did it every year. And that's been really challenging, but I think it's really great. We are not going to give up on it because I think the skills like measuring, drawing a straight line with a ruler, cutting on the lines, reading a diagram, tying knots are like key skills that are so helpful for little kids, especially the ones who struggle with their fine motor skills. So that's been really great, and I just wanted to mention that. If you're on the fence about it, give it a try. There's tutorials on YouTube that have been really helpful for me. I would watch those and just see if it's something you're interested in doing. You probably don't even need to buy the books or anything. You could just look up the tutorials on archive.org and do it. I really recommend that. But I will say, get a metal ruler with a cork backing so it doesn't slip. Because first I got those cheap wood rulers from the dollar store and they just slip and slide around on the paper, and that made it a lot harder. So it is important to have the right tools. The last thing I wanted to mention is a book. This has been my favorite. I don't know if it's my son's favorite. I think he would have a hard time choosing a favorite. It's called The World at Home. Actually, the version I have is called The World by the Fireside, but it's the same content as The World at Home. And then I showed it in my curriculum reveal as The New World at Home, but I eventually just did buy an old copy because I love it so much. And this has just been really wonderful. It talks about all different places in the world and all of like these natural wonders like geysers and volcanoes and what did we talk about? Different like people groups in the world and things like that. And it's just been really fun to learn about all of these things. There's a lot of things that I don't know about, and my son just thinks it's the most amazing thing in the world. And this isn't really recommended by any curriculum that I know of, but if you're looking for a good like sort of cultural geography book, if I was going to recommend one book, it would be this. And it is actually mentioned in Charlotte Mason's first book, Home Education. I think that's where I first heard about it. So yeah, that's my little update. If you have any other questions about what we're doing or the CMEC or anything, let me know in the comments. Thanks.